celebrate my kids having hard times that they call in.
Yes.
We don't need to create the hard times for them.
No.
They will call them in, but they'll actually be versions of their hard times. And so what's happened recently is for one of my kids, they had what could have been a very adult, challenging experience. And because we sat there holding the rope with them and said, you get to decide on how this thing unfolds, and it could have been a whole shit show, he got this experience where he got to find out what that's like to not let the ego run the race. And that, to me, is the kind of stuff we learn like in our 40s and 50s.
Yes.
Where we start taming. Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to another episode of Alchemising Education, our little sister podcast for Fuck the Shoulds. I'm QuantiMama Jodi.
Hello, everyone, and I'm QuantiMama Kerri. It's great to be here.
Is it?
It is. I love these conversations.
So
you know that even if I don't know what we're going to talk about.
So literally, I just said to Kez, "Hey, let's have a conversation." She's like, "I don't even know. I didn't even know what I'd say." I'm like, "Great. I don't care that you don't know because your wisdom will come through." No, I actually want to share a story of deep sorrow. And so if we could just have a moment of quiet for me as I go through the pains of having my firstborn move from being a 17-year-old to an instant adult in a matter of weeks. And the thing I wanted to share was this morning, we did the thing of calling up the bank, and because he has a phone now, I've really held the children off having phones, but he's 17, he's got a phone, and he's using that for his bank authorisation, right? And we're partway through doing this, and I said to him, so I put the phone on mute, and so the lady in the bank couldn't hear us, and I said to him, what do you reckon? Do you want to take me off your account too, so I've got no access to your bank account? And he's like, I think that's for the best, Mum. And I'm there going, my little baby's turning into an adult.
Yes, that's a very big shift.
It's huge. I don't think he appreciates how big
this is.
No, he does
not. Because in their minds, they're just ready.
That's right.
They don't need you to be on that. It's about the fact that we have raised these children. We have invested so much love, energy and time into this child for 18 years.
Yes. That's right.
And suddenly we no longer have a say in anything.
But we do. And that's exactly, that's what I want to come back to, right? Because I think, I know I'm being a bit silly about the whole thing, but how does this relate to alchemising education? Well, I'll tell you one thing, is that when we decided to homeschool the kids and go down a more alternate route, and I think that probably we would have done this even if they had been in the school system. I think we would have concentrated on life skills at home rather than worrying about the academics. I'd be like, go to school, do your academics, but come home and learn to be good people and how to navigate in the world and in the community. We just get to do more of that because they're not at school.
Yes.
And so how that relates then to alchemising education is it's about then helping the kids know what they really need to know, what the really important things are, what we have found as adults. And, once we come out of school and higher education and gone, shit, that would have been really useful to have that information, tax minimisation, which is obviously an Australian pastime. And
yes, isn't it?
things on how to be, I think, resourceful in this world, of particularly as resources get more expensive, whether that's fuel and food or accommodation, housing prices. So all these things come into how to navigate life to create a really abundant space. And what I'm appreciating is what that's like to go from this space of always being, I think, like the caretaker of all those admin details of life. And starting to hand the keys over to my child. And I'm so excited for him. I don't think he's going to suddenly fly the coop. He knows how expensive it is out there.
He knows how good he's got it at home.
In fact, he had to pay me a chunk of money, and so we did a test run. So that was part of our education today. As I said, do a test run, then the bank knows this is a familiar pathway to send money to, and then you can send your chunk of money. Anyway, so he was going to send me he'd done $1 and then he did the rest of a total amount. And I said, oh, no, you can deduct $1 off there now because you've already paid that to me. And he said, no, I'll make a deal with you. You keep the $1, but you keep paying for fuel after I get my car.
Oh, what a deal. What a deal.
I'm like, that's pretty good life education.
Yes.
So this kid started working out.
He'll go far.
He started working out how to wheel and deal, and bless him, I'm so proud. I don't want to be the person who pays for it, but I'm very proud.
Yes.
So you sit here having graduated, as in you are the mother that's graduated from having children to having adult children who are in that wonderful quasi space of still kind of, suckling at the family teat of resources, but also having a vote.
Yes.
And choosing which of the two political parties are going to rule the roost, which is all the same.
Yes.
So tell me about what that's like. As an alum, tell me what that's like, and what are some of the things that you've perhaps implemented for child 2? I know they're very different children.
Yeah.
And they actually followed in quite quick succession. I've got a good 2 to 3 years between each child, so I've got regrouping time and time to perfect the way I kind of cut that umbilical cord.
It is that I think maybe the thing to consider is that they are individuals and that they are different children, and what you do for one you cannot expect for the other, or may look very differently for the other. And I know that I always had this expectation as a young mum that you just do the same for both of them.
Yeah.
And life has taught me that that's definitely not the case. You have to treat them as that individual. But and that there's always those opportunities for learning, and that they will always come back to you with questions if they need to understand something. So even though one of them is really astute and really keen for independence and really just doesn't need a lot of guidance, still will come back in to the home and just occasionally say, hey, Mum, what do you think about this? So I think and I love that actually to a large extent. It sometimes surprises me about the sort of questions I get asked, and you kind of go, what? You're still asking about that? Or, hey, this is a really big question that shows me as a young adult that you are ready for this next phase or this next bit of information. So I think it's still about to a certain degree, holding that rope.
Yeah.
It's still holding the rope and letting them
I think you need to talk us
it.
through that, because that was an anonymous story that you've shared with us in our women's circle, and I know we've used it in our language before when we've felt like, either throttling a child or running away, is about this idea of holding the rope. Will you just give our beautiful Quanta folks a bit of a synopsis of what that means? Yeah,
well, I mean, really, it is about the fact that I think it's really important that our children are allowed to be themselves and to go forth in the world without having the umbilical cord still attached. But there is that energetic umbilical cord that we have that will always be there, but it's really important that it is severed in the most loving of ways at the appropriate times. However, at times that they do need to still know that you're there. They may not need a lot of it. It may not be obvious. It may not be spoken words. It may just be the energy of mum's beside me, even if she's not telling me what to do. So I think it's about knowing that we still have a role to play, and that sometimes they get a tug at that rope and they're going to get to the very end where there's a real pull and there's a real thrash, and we just need to hold it, because that holding of the rope just makes them feel that little bit more supported. They know that they can trial and test and explore and experience without worrying about that rope being severed in that moment, but that we don't actually have to physically maybe be doing or saying anything.
Yeah, I really think of it, when you shared that with us, the analogy that came to my mind was the idea of abseiling. Because abseiling, you don't think of it as a limitation to have that rope. In fact, it's a bloody useful rope to have as you go pinging off a rock face and heading down a cliff face. And so I think that sometimes we think as parents that we need to throw our children in the deep end. And to me, that is a fast track, first place, ribbon winning position of creating trauma.
Absolutely.
It just does, right? Because
Yes.
in that moment of feeling so vulnerable, we basically mic drop for our kids and
Yes.
go, "You're all right, little Johnny, in the deep
Yep.
end you go. If you sink or swim, we'll find out." And, how can that feel supportive? How can
Yes.
that keep the kids in the, I think, not necessarily parasympathetic state, but certainly with their nervous system feeling regulated?
Yep.
I don't know how that can happen because they feel deserted almost immediately. And so when you were talking about holding the rope, that idea that the rope is this fail-safe. It's this invitation, but we don't need to pull on it. We literally just hold it. And sometimes, as you say, when our kids are really stretching the elasticity of the rope, they're really like
Thrashing at the end.
giving it a bloody good tug,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, all I want to do is let go of it.
Yes.
In those moments, you would say, just hold the rope.
Yes.
Just hold it. You don't
Yes.
have to pull back against it. You don't have to, try and create resistance or create difficulty for your child or gain any rope. You literally just need to hang on to it so they have a safe tether.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think I also liken it to the concept of the sinking child in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
When they throw them in the swimming pool and said, they'll learn to swim. But if they don't have the skills,
Yeah.
they don't have the knowledge,
Yeah.
they don't have, what it is that it takes to actually stay upright and breathe the air above the water. That shows us that there's still some opportunities for us to pass on, maybe that little bit of knowledge, or to know that they actually need you to help them in that moment. That a drowning child's not going to learn to swim in that moment, are they?
No, I fished many children out of the pool when I was a pool lifeguard, and they did not learn how to move. They just went into stress mode and into freeze generally.
Correct. And then what does that do for them going forward in life when it comes to experiences which bring up that trauma or that memory?
Yeah, their neural pathway of freeze is already established, and so it makes it more available for them. So, yeah, it's a real thing. And the thing I want to say is, you're never going to get rid of trauma, right? And we've talked about this before, and I celebrate my kids having hard times that they call in.
Yes.
We don't need to create the hard times for them.
No.
They will call them in, but they'll actually be versions of their hard times. And so what's happened recently is, for one of my kids, they had what could have been a very adult, challenging experience. And because we sat there holding the rope with them and said, you get to decide on how this thing unfolds, and it could have been a whole shit show. But what happened was, we basically said, one of your options is to exit stage left on this situation.
Absolutely.
You don't get to finance it. You don't get to find out, where this goes. You don't get to worry about what other people think about you. You literally just leave the experience, because you can already see that this is not going to be a fair race, and you won't get your day in court, so to speak. And so within that, he got this experience where he got to find out what that's like to not let the ego run the race. And that, to me, is the kind of stuff we learn in our 40s and 50s.
Yes.
Where we start taming our ego and saying, okay, I actually don't need to know how that works. I can see this thing playing out. It's not going to work.
Yep.
And so I just need to find an alternative. I need to be agile. And so then holding space as a parent in that and going, I must not save my child. I must not save my child, but I must sit there beside him.
Yes, and they need to know that you're there supporting their decisions.
Yes.
And supporting the way that feels right to them. And I think about it also as, we become grandparents. We're far from that at this stage, but
I can't wait though, because you hand them back, right?
I know.
Isn't that great?
It's a beautiful beautiful part of life, absolutely.
To my children, another 10 years at least, please.
But it's like you've got to at some point let them then be the parent.
Yes,
like at some
right.
point you have to hand it over to them.
Yeah.
And if we think that we're still parenting them in through adulthood and telling them what to do, where to go, how to do things, then when do they ever learn to stand on their own 2 feet, find their own power, make their own decisions, and own it?
Well, and have the experience of living, which is to have the experiences.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not like you get to 18 and suddenly, right, they're an adult and they, cut themselves out.
Yes.
We're still there because we're in each other's lives, and we want to be in each other's lives, but we want to give them the freedom to be them, and that You know, in many respects, I was really pleased when they got to that stage.
Yeah.
I kind of wasn't so much sad about the fact that they were turning that age. I was really excited for them to be at that age, knowing that it's now their turn to just go and fly.
Yes, that's right.
I was really excited for them.
Yeah, it's actually, it's like you've already given them the opportunity to fly, but now society gives them the opportunity to fly because they're at an age where they are allowed or permitted to do a lot of those things. And I think that's where it's really beautiful because it's a very visible flying as opposed to the, you know, quiet behind closed doors flying that happens. And that's one thing that I think, as I think about, because my kids now are sort of between almost 18 and 10, I have been intentionally giving my younger kids adult opportunities. And when I say adult opportunities, we're talking about things like fiscal responsibility.
Yep.
So, you know, they might earn some money. It might not be a lot, but they will contribute to things that they want to do. Because what I see in society and where I think we're getting it wrong is we constantly give everything to our children. And I'm like, how can you possibly teach radical responsibility and a sense of being autonomous and a sense of having some kind of effect of you being in your own driver's seat for your own life? How can you do that if everything is provided for you? So part of that discomfort that I create for my kids is even my 10-year-old gets given the task of cooking, and let me tell you, he is no little master chef. Like, we're eating nachos essentially most meals. That's it. That's all he can manage. But that's okay because he has to start somewhere.
And it gives him that sense of responsibility and that role within the family that he knows that he's contributing in that way. Now, there's no judgment around what he's doing. The fact is he's just doing it.
Oh, there's definitely some judgment. It's quiet.
I know that, but I'm just saying it's kind of like there's no... The judgment needs to be realistic in terms of...
Quiet. It's quiet.
Yeah, because they're doing it right.
I know, and that's exactly right.
And I understand that. I would not be happy with nachos for dinner personally either. But you know, it's
but I accept in my radical responsibility. I accept the fact that I've asked him to make dinner.
Yes.
My long game plan is that he starts thinking around how can he contribute to the community he lives in. And, you know, because he benefits from dinner all the other nights. And, I mean, the other thing that I'm getting them to do is start paying for some of their things, you know, some of these extracurricular things. And I'm like, why do I have to pay for that? I'm not doing that. You know, I got to pay to get you there. And I'm not interested in, you know, causing some kind of effect that it forces gratitude where they go, I'm so grateful you drove me here, Mum.
No.
I do point that out sometimes of you know, there is a knock-on effect of you, you wanting to do all these things, right? So that's okay. Yep. But I also think that part of becoming aware of, you know, moving into that adult space is being mindful about, you know, where you spend your resources. And so that's part of it. And so I'd really encourage parents when they're wanting to bring in, I guess, a balancing of education, because I don't think school does this. You know, I think that kids get their school lunches paid for, they get their excursions paid for. It's just not part of the vocabulary. There's not a lot of spaciousness for kids that have full-time school education work, is what I call it. It's their full-time job, to have part-time jobs. But there is an opportunity where you can find ways to help them, I guess, bring some money in for themselves. You know, it might be something small like having a little stall out the front of the house and selling, you know, lemonade or lots of lovely little entrepreneurial things that people do.
There's many things you can be doing.
There are kids out there that sell their toys when they've had enough of them, so they'll sell those on the side of the road, and I just think that's lovely. I might sell it in Marketplace. One of our friends, I mean, these guys are homeschoolers, but one of our friends has got, her daughter is so entrepreneurial. She has worked out to buy chocolates at a seriously reduced rate. We're talking like the little fun size one, and then she marks them up and sells them them 5 times the price at her dad's work.
Oh, yes.
And adults being adults needing,
a sugar hit.
A 3 p.m. sugar hit are like, oh, I don't care that that's $2 for that tiny little fun-sized Mars bar.
Yeah.
She's making an absolute killing.
I bet she is.
We predict she's going to buy her first house by about 18.
Well, they're the sort of things that just get some thinking about an exchange of how we work in society or how we work in community, and they're the gifts that we give our kids that, you're right, don't necessarily happen in the school environment all the time. Well, they may, but, it's about that practical application that we get to witness as well. And, I mean, the beauty of that, because you get to see their skills. Yeah. And their way of thinking. I mean, it's just, it's priceless. I love hearing those stories.
It's a different kind of initiative, isn't it?
So, definitely.
I think that what happens is when you do choose to homeschool, there's a greater degree of spaciousness. So the fatigue factor isn't there for kids, which then means there's enough time for boredom and creativity to start coming through. And so then, they can start thinking, okay, what do I want, or what resources am I going to need, or sometimes that's money. And so they start thinking a little bit more on that, the need creates the initiative within that space.
Yep.
But what I'm seeing is that how impactful that can be as they move into that emerging adulthood, which suddenly happens, because I can see, like, when you hit 18, you suddenly want a car.
Yes.
And you need to pay $3 a litre for that, wherever you want to go, right? So there's a consciousness around that. Maybe you want to have a few more excursions. Maybe you want to, go travelling.
Yes.
And I can just see that must feel overwhelming too. Like, it must feel like a kid in a lolly shop, but it must also feel like sensory overload too.
Yes.
So when we have brought in more of those strategies for our kids beforehand and started empowering them around that, like I literally said to my almost adult child, I think I'm going to stop paying you your $9 a week. Pocket money. And again, he just said, could you just pay for my fuel instead? So always looking for an angle, that kid.
Oh, he's learning fast.
I have suggested you do some science experiments and work out how to make your own fuel. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Some biofuel. So watch this space.
Yeah. I think it's really lovely watching them step out into that role though, because then you get to see the fruits of your decisions that you've made over that time, when you kind of go, well, did that really work? Was that worth it? Did I really need to teach them that? And you start to go, actually, that was really important, and that did make a difference, and I'm really grateful for that. So it is an opportunity, but there's always more. You just hope that one day they come and look after you, They start paying for all your things. Wouldn't that be nice?
I would just like to keep enough of my money to do that myself.
Yeah, I know, that's true. Yeah, well, you've got the 10-year-old still to come through the system.
That's right.
So I'm sorry, but the money's still going to be pouring out for a little bit.
So we talk about tax minimisation. I think I'm just trying to keep it child expenses minimisation.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see how that goes. I might be living on the street, but that's okay. Everyone's meant to downsize, aren't they?
Absolutely. It's a good place to be.
So in wrapping up, what's some advice that you would give to me as I keep moving through this space? Like, what are the things that helped you? What are the surprises that occurred? What are the things that you were so glad you did that, really resource the relationship?
Yeah, I think, the surprises I think are always good to identify, aren't they? Because I think the surprises have been that you think that you're going to be able to teach them everything, and in fact you don't. Because there are just some children who will get certain lessons and some who won't. So whilst I did take the approach of trying to give both of them the same sort of things, it didn't always land for both of them. So that was a really important thing, and to not berate yourself for that.
Yeah.
Because they will take on what they want to take on. And that's been a really big thing for me to realise, is that, I had these big intentions of they'll be able to do this at this stage and this at that stage, and they'll have all of that sorted, and they'll, And, what is the mark of success is the other thing I think we really need to think about.
It's a great question.
I think when we have our own expectation on what success looks like, and I'm learning that success is different for different people, and to allow them to have their own level of success, to not put my expectations on that. So one might be seen as being more successful by society's standards, but the other one is actually really successful in richness of, awareness of social needs and, doing things differently and not doing what everyone else expects them to do. So I think, really not putting too much pressure on them to do what you think is right, but to allow them to find their own flow. And so even though one is, sort of older than the other, the older one may not necessarily be doing the things that the younger one's doing, but it's just that we put on such an expectation that society expects of them by a certain age group, and you just can't do that.
No.
It's actually not. And this is the school thing where we have them in grades and ages. I'm really understanding that age is irrelevant to the individual.
Yes.
And where they are in their journey.
Yes.
And so, some might say that my oldest is, not doing what they think her age group should be doing. But it's like, actually, I see a lot of value in the way she's done it. She's done it her way against many, many, many people who think that that's not the right way.
Yeah.
So allowing them to be them and to do it their successful way in terms of what's successful to them and what is meaningful to them. That's and just stepping back, taking the hands off and just letting them live life their way.
Whilst hanging on to the rope.
It's
beautiful.
So that's probably, I just sort of I think the challenges are worth talking about in that regard, that it doesn't always look like what you think it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I remember even a parent who did a lot of their school work for their kids, even through high school.
They did not.
They did.
And we've got AI for that now, luckily.
Well, we have. But I remember the parent really being heavily invested in going out and finding all these resources and just doing everything for their child to be successful in their grades and and I just kind of go, wow, I don't know whether that's going to serve that child, because I wonder whether that child then becomes a person who just pleases for everybody else's sake and not for themselves. So they learn to do what they think is right for everybody else. Now, that's something I'm really proud of my kids. They do not do what keeps other people happy.
Oh, I love that.
They do not.
No. They're very clear with that.
They're very, very clear. And at times that's really challenged me.
Yeah.
But now I can look back on it and go, I'm really proud of that. Because they're honouring what's right for them, not what's right for other people, not even perhaps what they would have thought Mum would have wanted at one point. They're doing what's right for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ultimate marker of success,
Well, suddenly when you're an adult, that's
you've got to do
what's
it anyway.
expected anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're obviously doing our best to deprogram people from the shoulds, hence the podcast title.
Yes.
But I think the thing is that this new generation that's coming through of adults their natural proclivity is to be should fuckers anyway. I actually think that's kind of the norm, because they are doing things differently. There is a greater degree of school refusal. There is a greater degree of
not fitting,
deferring uni, and I mean, they're all the things that we just did. You just went to kinder, primary school, high school, uni, and that was just a standard. And then what? I mean, after I had done uni, I then went travelling. I deferred. I went back to uni, and I didn't even work in that space. And then I did a whole bunch of jobs, and then I went back to school again because I found what I wanted to do. And so, not that I'm saying that wasn't perfect in its unfolding, but these kids have got like the bullshit detector already installed for that stuff, and so they just don't do it. And so, again, it always comes down to us parents.
Yes,
we must
really
keep
does.
resourcing ourselves because the kids have got it.
Yes.
We just need to catch up.
Yep.
And I think they know that, don't they?
They do, but it's about whether they've got the strength and the courage to sometimes step out of what's been expected of them.
Yeah.
So it depends on what's around them, who they surround themselves in. And if that's one thing I feel like for my kids, they've surrounded themselves with really good people or the right people. Even if it's not many, it's still the right people.
For right now. Yep.
So that they are prepared to do what feels right for them, even if it's not what others their age or expect of them. But I see a lot of kids just doing what keeps their parents happy.
Yes.
And that breaks my heart.
Oh, I think they'll have a revolt at some point.
They have to. I think they have to, because ultimately we're here to sort of do what feels right within ourselves, and that what lights us up and what brings us some element of joy and hopefully money along the way, or at least some security of, you know, having a place to live in. So I think if they've not been able to do that through those years, then they have to find it at some point.
Yeah. Look, and everything's energy, so it must have its polar opposite or its counterbalance.
Yep.
So, you know, if you've been doing the shoulds for a long time, you're probably due to have the equal and opposite reaction.
Absolutely.
As they say.
Yeah, definitely.
So, folks, find that rope.
Hold the rope.
Just pop it on in your hand, loose grip, and you know, I think that can be sometimes the most useful piece of information or advice that we can give to parents is that if you're not sure what to do, just hold the rope.
Yeah, be the observer.
Yeah,
we love that, don't we? It's such a powerful thing for a parent to do, especially in those moments of overwhelm when we're going, "What the hell am I meant to be doing? Why are they not doing what I want them to do?"
Yeah.
Hold the rope and observe.
So watch this space. I'm about to graduate into being a parent of an adult. It's very exciting.
It is exciting.
We're going to do a graduation ceremony at some point.
Oh yeah,
just for me.
Yeah, totally. It's for the parents anyway. That
might be the only one I'm proud of. No, I'm kidding. I love all my children.
Yes.
Beautiful Quanta folks. We'll look forward to talking with you again for another Alchemising Education chat.
Thank you for joining us as always. We love it.
Hey Quanta folks. You know, the conversations that we have about alchemising education are underpinned by our amazing Take the Leap course for parents, which is all about deschooling the parents. If you're keen to deep dive more, then check out the QuantiMama.com website and find the Take the Leap course. This course is beautiful because it will give you an opportunity to examine where your programs are, where you're creating limiting beliefs and expectations for your child, and it ultimately frees you to be the best advocate for your child that you can be, and that's all of us can ever want for our children, just to love, nurture and watch them become the most incredible individuals that we already know them to be. So more info, head to QuantiMama.com. Beautiful Quanta folks. You know, at QuantiMama, we have a mandate that we feel so passionate about. We want and we are raising the community's vibration and frequency and consciousness through parenting and birth experiences. Such incredible, transformational experiences that will shape you as a person and are the very fabric of life. Do you want to find out how to high vibe your experience even more? Then QuantiMama is your place. Head there for the High Vibe Birth course, ultimate preparation for birthing. Head there if you want to re-engage your child in the love of learning for the Take the Leap course, which is a deschooling course for parents. There's beautiful mind movies, and obviously this podcast is there, and we are here to support you. So head there for all the juice.